We need to make sure every event is inclusive for anyone and their learning style and just what makes them comfortable so they have the best attendee journey.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted online platform for the best keynote speakers in the world. And I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. I want to say hello to a lot of our first-time listeners. We've got a lot of first-time listeners on this show. I know it. I can feel it. The reason I feel so confident about it is not only does our guest have a broad reach in the industry, everyone seems to know her, everyone respects her. So some of you people are here today to listen to her. And then there are those folks who I briefly met for a few minutes at Michael Cirbelli's Hot List last week in Austin, Texas at the Catersaurus and Special Event Show. Thank you to Michael. I was very grateful to be included on the Hot List, give me an opportunity to talk a little bit about the podcast, get some new listeners to the show. So thank you, folks, for taking a quick snapshot of that QR code and landing here today. And I want to say hello to our loyal, dedicated listeners who keep on coming back to the program. We really appreciate that. We really like hearing from you as well. People have been reaching out to me on LinkedIn because I post a lot on LinkedIn. So if you ever have any comments or you have any questions, or even if you want to be a guest, please just put Scott Bloom Connects in the search box. That'll get right to me. Send me a note and I'll definitely get back to you and we'll chat. We'll talk. So let me get to our guest today. You all know who it is. I am a huge fan of hers. I just recently met her and I was so impressed by her. And I said to her, hey, you should definitely be on my podcast. I was fortunate enough that she agreed. So she's here with us today. I'm talking about the one and only Kate Patay. And for those of you who don't know, Kate is a engagement strategist. She's an event design and production guru, and she's currently VP of engagement at Terramar DMC. And she wears that title well because she's all about engagement. She's truly engaging. She's enthusiastic. She loves this industry, and it was my honor to finally sit down and talk to her. You know, in our conversation, she shares her perspectives on many different industry topics. We discuss the importance of inclusivity, having unbridled enthusiasm for your job, which she definitely checks that box. We talk a little bit about the magic of bringing people together to forge a genuine sense of community, and we talk a little bit about diversity of experience. And speaking of the latter, Kate addresses how embracing diverse ideas is not just ethical, it's smart business. She also underscores the critical role of preparation, and she actually uses the incomparable success of Taylor Swift's concerts to demonstrate how attention to detail and passion for the craft are vital. And who doesn't want to hear more about Taylor, about Tay-Tay, about... I'm just thinking about this in real time. Maybe I start calling her Patay. I think she'd hate that, so maybe I won't. And finally, and this is fun, she acknowledges that live events are risky. They can throw out curveballs and behind-the-scenes chaos. We all know that. But did we know that Kate is the unfeathered, cool-as-a-cucumber pro that embodies composure? Now you know. Kate says that it's about holding your nerve to keep the show going. She's just awesome, and I had such a great time getting to know her. So, without further ado, let's bring in Kate to hear about all her insights and about how she stays calm no matter what's thrown at her. You're very well respected in the industry, and I'm surprised we haven't crossed paths before.
I know. I looked on LinkedIn and I was like, we have so many mutual friends that it took this long to be linked up is kind of astonishing. But then that just reminds you how big the industry really is at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm always looking for great guests. And, after I saw your profile and saw some of the awards that you were recognized with, didn't you just win an award this year?
The Richard Carbati Award. That was a humanitarianism award. So Richard Carbati was actually really good friends with Michael Serbelli and kind of helped raise him in the industry. And if you ask Michael, he would say, Richard taught me everything I know.
I'm good friends with Michael as well. And I know Michael was just inducted or is going to be inducted this year into for a Lifetime Achievement Award over the special events.
He won it
gala.
at the same time. So while he was getting his Lifetime Achievement, I was getting the Richard Carbati. We were back to back on stage.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. So here, I'm going to go over a couple of awards. I don't want to embarrass you, but you've won a whole bunch of awards. I just want to set up your credibility during this conversation. And stop me if I get any of these wrong. I'm going to just go through a couple of them. You won a Pacesetter Award from the Events Industry Council. You were honored with the Hall of Fame Award. In 2021, you were recognized as the NACE icon and one of the top 25 women who run events, as well as a top 20 global professional to follow by CVent. And if we go back to 2020, you were praised as one of the 100 most influential people in global events and a top 14 change maker. Wow, right?
It's a lot. I'm blushing over here.
Oh, good. I was wondering if it was the tint on my screen, but yes, you are blushing a little bit. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into the events world, and why you've made such a big impact in this industry.
I think like a lot of people getting into events, I fell into events. I just decided to start working in them early on, and it was just in my blood. I thought I was going to college for communications, and by the time I was ready to graduate, I knew I wanted to stay in events. So I am one of those that did not finish. I opted to forge my own path and stay with our industry. And I love what we do.
And so to let people know what you're doing right now, because I think you do a few different things. So I know you're a VP at Terramar DMC, but you do some consulting as well as speaking, right?
I do. I do a lot of industry advocacy and speaking on behalf of just our industry in general. I think when I started in events, like I said, I fell into events and I didn't always have all the resources that are available. So to me, I should knowledge share as much as I possibly can and give back to our industry that way. Yeah. And it's kind of a fun story with Terramar. They approached me. I've worked with them for years. I had my own firm, was on the planning side, had a few different roles across different types of events. And they approached me and said, we love what you do and we love your messaging. We just expanded our brand, our global presence, and we want you to do exactly what you do now, but for us. And it was one of those interesting conversations of, will I take my successful business that I love and I'm proud of and move into something different and work for somebody else? And it was actually the best thing that could have ever come along. I redefined what I thought success was and really put my ego aside to see that being the business owner wasn't the epitome of success in my book, that I wanted better balance and I wanted to be happy. And that's what Terramar was offering. And that's why I'm sitting in the seat I am today.
That's great. I understand your consulting firm was very successful, and then you moved into this other role. Is your role more about the consulting within the industry, or are you doing day-to-day DMC stuff?
More of the industry facing. So when Terramar expanded, they had bought 3 of the most well-respected DMCs across the West Coast and really wanted to bring it under that corporate umbrella. So it was a combination of helping Terramar to be under that same brand and make sure that it's a united front behind the scenes, but then also be forward-facing to the industry to advocate for who we are, what we do, and why it's so important to hire a professional and work with the best out there.
When I was doing some research on you, I know you have a passion for Taylor Swift. You were a self-proclaimed Swiftie. What is your connection to Taylor Swift? Because I find her interesting as a business icon, as an icon for women-owned businesses. What drew you to Taylor besides her music?
It was really a lot of that. I think seeing her as a woman standing up to pressures and people expecting her to fit into a certain box. And at the time, I felt like I was going through some similar things, and she comes busting out with Reputation. And I was like, who is she? So I was definitely a later on Swiftie, that I didn't really develop this until closer to Reputation came out. But watching what she does, even if you don't like her music, you have to respect that hustle, that she raises everyone up. She's fighting for different music artists. She walks her talk. And I really appreciate that about people. You have to respect everything that she's earned, because she has earned every bit of it. And she's taken what could be at times perceived as negative, and she's turned them into a positive for herself. I think we should always aim to do that for our own lives. So even if you don't like her music, you've got to respect what she's done.
Oh, what's interesting about her music, there's, countless stories of either husbands, boyfriends, family members, sisters, brothers who, had no connection to Taylor Swift. They went to a concert and this was the best concert I've ever seen. She's the most amazing artist I've ever seen. So there's something mystical. I don't want to throw that around, but there's something transcendent about who she is and what she's doing and what she's bringing to not just contemporary pop culture, but to this idea of what it means to live your truth and to, just be inspired on a daily basis. And she's inspiring a lot of people.
The event side of that too, the production, that is where I completely geeked out over it. I purposely went 3 nights in a row, the 3 closing LA shows, because the event pro in me wanted to see the first night from suite level right down in front to see what that looked like and be eye to eye with her, basically. Second night, I was front row on the floor, which just don't even have words for how incredible that was. And then the third night, the closing night, I just, from the get-go, we knew that it was August, so it was 8/9, which 89 is one of her things, one of the Easter eggs. And I was like, something is going to happen this night. I want to be sitting in a balcony, looking down, seeing the whole stage and experiencing that production start to finish from a different vantage point. And I loved it. All 3 seats, I can't rave enough about. It's like 5 different shows in one. No matter where you sit, you're getting the best view of the show because she's taken that into consideration.
That's amazing. So anything else you learned from an event standpoint? I know that, when she was traveling, there were 2 different sets. One would be going in advance to be set up. Did you see any sort of tricks or any management decisions to create, this fantastic event besides what Taylor's doing on stage?
Oh, the stage effects are amazing. That I was sitting there trying to count how long the individual CO2 blasts were to figure out how many tanks were under there. And just, that's where my head goes. It was a blast seeing that. Being able to see into the stage from the one vantage point was pretty cool, because there's a full production going on under that stage. When she's changing, the little pulley system that gets her to and from each end of the stage, and then seeing the people that have the in-ear comms with her that are listening real time and following her up and down the stage so that they know exactly what's going on. All those little things stood out. And then seeing I feel like I'm giving away so much, seeing the little laser pointer so that she could hit her marks on stage without having to tape them down, but knowing that that's where she's going to step. The stage is going to do this next. Getting to see that up close, I was like, aha, that's how they're doing it.
So is that common for you to go and see other events to see what they're doing? I mean, this Taylor Swift extravaganza was mind blowing for everyone, but is that something you like to do, is go to different events and see how people are doing things?
I do. I'm such an industry nerd like that I want to see how other people put an event together, the thought they put into it. There's still a couple that I produce every year that I had worked with prior to being with Terramar. So I still keep those on my plate, a couple of large ones, and it gives me inspiration for those. I helped to produce one in September that we were trying to move 17,000 people one way, but we need to keep 6,000 there and keep them interested. So how do you speak to 2 audiences and get one moving through the event space to their next event while we keep people engaged, but then also make sure another 6,000 can get out, because that's the typical fall off for it. So I find inspiration at every event I go to.
And I know you're also, besides being a Swiftie, you're a travel enthusiast. You love to travel. Tell me, how do you infuse your personal passions into event planning to create unique and memorable experiences?
Like this week, for instance, I'm taking a handful of our top clients. We're all going to Puerto Vallarta to experience our office there and what an incentive trip looks like in that region. And that makes it fun. I like the travel piece. I think there's always tips and tricks to get ahead of it, so it's not quite as stressful. There are days that I'm rolling my eyes at travel that, you get a delay or something that you can't overcome. But I think that if you're set up for success and prepared for it, that your trips can be outstanding. If you could see these know before you goes that we put together, that is one of my pride and joys, is setting people up to come in and just know everything they need to know. What are the outfits that you should be wearing? What are you going to be experiencing? How are you just going to have the best time and let us do the work? So that's my happy place.
So I met you at the Teneo Hospitality 10-year anniversary event. Yes. I know Terramar was responsible for a lot of the logistics and a lot of the stuff that actually happened on site. You mentioned the know before you go. Were you responsible for putting that book together?
Yes, we put that together. The creative team and I at Terramar did.
Wow. I mean, I learned a couple of new terms, I guess, with the faces. That's called the Facebook in the industry, right? Mm-hmm. So just having that, and I know a lot of events do that, but it was so well laid out, the know before you go, to have that sheet there and to show you had literally pictures, photos of people, what these would be some great outfits to wear. Yes. That was so important. What else was in that book? Because I thought that was very, very helpful. I thought everything from the opening moment to the closing moment, that was just a stellar event. And I know Terramar had a big part of it. What was your reaction to that whole few-day conference?
Oh, I had a blast with it because I knew all the surprise and delight that was coming. I helped put that together for it. But I like when people know enough that they're prepared and they have a good experience getting there. So it talked about everything from your arrival experience at SFO to, coming through what it would look like looking for your driver, arriving on site. Like no detail is overlooked. But yet we didn't really give away what was going to happen at the actual events. So, the closing night, having that surprise reveal to an after party and dessert area for everybody. They all think they're getting the group photo that they want every year. And all of a sudden the wall goes away and here's your DJ and your dessert area and dance floor. So I like little things like that. It's those small touches, those details that make the client smile.
Yeah, I was there at that moment for that final picture. And then we had I haven't heard this term in a while, but we had that kabuki drop. I don't know if we could say, we still use that term, but that's
still what it was. Used, yeah.
Yeah. The drapes just dropped. No, for whatever reason, you had all these event professionals. No one saw that coming. It's incredible. Well, I didn't. I don't know if the other people did, but it was a great surprise to see that right after that. So these are benefits that you're getting because Teneo partnered with a DMC. What are some other values and benefits of partnering with a DMC? Tell me a little bit more about DMCs, but sometimes it's just transportation from the airport. Sometimes it's a whole soup to nuts kind of thing. What are the different variations of how to bring in a DMC?
Well, I always encourage people to bring a DMC in as early as possible because they're the destination management expert. That's what we do. Always double check, I will say, to make sure that your DMC is local to the area that you're in. That's part of the network that we're in, is that you have to have boots on the ground there. You can't just fly in teams from other cities to run it. I ran into that years ago at an event in San Francisco. The people I'd hired, they flew their group in from Houston and they couldn't tell me when we had roads shut down where to go or how to solve anything. So that's one of the things with Terramar's DMC network. Everyone is local to the area that they're in. So you're getting that true knowledge. Like Julia down in Puerto Vallarta that I'll be with this week. She's been with us 26 years doing this. Like there is no one more knowledgeable about Puerto Vallarta than she is. So you're going in and you're not having to learn every destination you're going to. I don't even think that's possible as a planner, is to know every single vendor and every destination for linens and chairs and transportation and activities and who's going to put together decor. That's why you call a DMC, because your time is valuable. Let them be those knowledge keepers of that destination, that area, and they make your lives easy.
You're going to Puerto Vallarta. How can event planners effectively navigate destination events and work in markets they're less familiar with? How do they navigate that experience?
I think navigating a DMC experience is really finding one that fits you, because we all are very different. And when you get ones like DMC Network and Terramar, you won't see us doing the most amount of advertising in the world because our word of mouth referrals are so strong. Once someone has an event with us, they want to stay within the network. So if I get a call from our partner in New Orleans or Chicago, I'm prioritizing that client because they understand the value and we know that we're going to take great care of them. So reach out to your network, see who they recommend and see who's a really good fit for the style of event that you're going to have, the price point where you want to be. We're known for very boutique-y events and these amazing, that surprise and delight, all of those extra touches. There are some that are known larger scale or that they just only do transportation, that style. Everyone's got their own style. So figure out who meshes with you and you can follow them from destination to destination. You don't have to recreate that relationship every time.
So let's talk a little bit about relationships and strong partnerships, because what we're talking about is really a collaboration with the client. We talked a little bit about that Teneo hospitality event, but are any other exceptional events come to mind where the collaboration and the strong partnership really paid off in the end?
I have a few that have really stuck out to me as a success. To me, I define that success when I see that client smiling so big they can't even contain it. I referenced one earlier in September that I had helped with, and I go into some events white labeling that we come in and we're the boots on the ground team working with other teams to make them successful, which is a great collaboration. But I'm known for the Hail Marys. They brought me in 36 days out to put an event on top of an existing event and make that successful. So that was the one that we had to move 17,000 people to one area for their entertainment, but knowing that we had overflow somewhere between 6 and 8, most likely, and creating a whole separate event for them. And the superstars that came on stage, working with the teams when you've got headliners like Dylan Francis and Demi Lovato and people coming on stage, that's working with all of those teams as well to make it happen, bringing effects into a stage that's already existing. It was so many moving pieces, but working across maybe 26 different vendors to make that happen. And just knowledge share. I think that's the biggest takeaway from it is setting them up for success. We knew what we were up against. We knew what challenges there were. And I shared every one of those from the start so that everyone was set up for success and could have a good part in this and feel good about how they contributed. That meant a lot to me.
Wow, that's just exhausting listening to it. You must have to have a really great team. And once again, it's all about cultivating these strong relationships. And how do you bring that across all the stakeholders so that everyone feels that they're invested in the success of the event?
I think letting them know from the get-go, who you're working with, what the end goal is. I'm very clear always with budgets up front, what expectations are, and asking if they are the right fit for it. Most of the people I work with come back year after year to do the same events because it is that collaborative presence. And if they're doing right by me and our clients and really knocking it out of the park, that's who I'm referring to all of my industry friends as well. That's how our industry works. It's built on these relationships. And, I use a lot of people that support the Search Foundation, for instance. They come in and they assist to make sure we're raising funds for individuals in our industry that are in crisis. And if they've got that giving heart, that charitable side in their company, that speaks to their individuals on the team as well. And that's who I want to work with.
And, this is an industry with an influx of newcomers. I don't know if they're coming in now, post-pandemic. We had a lot of people retire and leave. So this industry is in flux. And definitely we need new people coming in. So I guess, how do you attract these new people? How do you educate them? How do you mentor them to basically raise the overall standard of event planning? We have this turning point. How can we make now event planning even better?
Oh, we are definitely at that crux where we get to write the future of all of this with everyone that's coming in the door. And it's exciting. It's going to take work from our side. I think it takes patience and slowing down for a moment to make sure that we're giving people coming into the industry the education that they need to be successful. We kind of sometimes carelessly throw around a lot of terms that you're talking about the BEOs that the DMO needs because the DMC asked for this. And if you're not part of this industry, we just assume people know. And I never like to assume anything. So, I try to create some type of community with individuals that they can ask me, that it's not scary to come up and say, I need more information on this to get my job done, or I need a little bit more information to be successful. Take the time and make sure that you're doing that because people are going to stick around a lot longer and you're setting them up for success. That goes back to chatting about when I was early on in my career that I did have some stumbling blocks. And that's, I think, why I'm so pushing for the education of the industry and resources, because if I had had some better resources, I would not have stumbled as much as I did. So if I can help remove any of those roadblocks, I'm going to do that for this generation coming in.
Where do you think these new people are coming from? Is it from the traditional ways, maybe hospitality? What do they have? Hospitality majors now or hospitality schools? Where is everyone coming from these days?
Yeah, there's so many more hospitality schools than there used to be, which is amazing, including some that are like a secondary learning that you've already had a full career and you thought this is what you wanted to do and you've got your degree and you're a chiropractor and you're like, I actually hate this. I love events. It's a whole retraining that they take people that have had a great career, which I think is amazing. And I always look for people that are just excited and passionate. I can train you how to run an event. I can train you on a run of show. I can train you on any of this. I can't train genuine enthusiasm, though, and you wanting to be part of this bigger, greater good. So I look for talent absolutely everywhere. I don't care what the background is. If you can make a smart decision, you've got common sense and you're willing to learn, let's roll.
Yeah, a lot of it is about enthusiasm. I remember when I was back, maybe 20 years ago, I was working at an event and it was a young woman. She was a PA, but anything that I needed or I had asked for, she was on it. I saw the way she interacted with the rest of the crew. She was someone I knew was definitely going to be successful because she just wanted to be the best at what she's doing. And that's where you start from is, yes, you can learn a little bit more about the nuances of the industry, but you want to be able to be going in wanting to do a successful job. But they also come in now with different perspective. Have you had any experience with any Gen Z or even some young millennials that have had a different perspective on something and said, hey, I know you've been doing it this way all along, but do you ever think of doing this? I mean, that's kind of interesting because we get sort of stuck in a way of doing things and then someone comes in with a fresh perspective.
I love people that look through a different lens than I do. It pushes me to always be better and think of those different creative ideas. We had someone a few years ago that had chatted with us about there were items that we were shipping out and he was in back and that was his job. He did all the shipping all of the time. And he had come forward and basically said, why are we doing it this way? Because if we do this, it's going to save this much time. And I stood there and I was like, why aren't we doing it like that? Are you kidding me? It was so eye-opening. And when you're looking at the people that are basically in the trenches doing the work, I want to know their perspective on what they're seeing, how it's going. I tell everyone I have an open door. Come in and give me any idea. It doesn't mean I'm going to use it. I may say no. I'll tell you why I'm saying no or why it didn't work in the past, but still keep bringing those ideas because I think people bring just such unique and interesting ones. I personally try to be quiet sometimes. I know today I'm not, shocking, but I think that when someone in the room is a little senior, they can maybe sway the decisions of the room. So I try to always be the last one that speaks when a question is posed to the group, because I want to genuinely hear what everyone else in the room thinks. What's their idea? How are they looking at it? Because I don't want my opinion on how it should be to sway their opinion on how it should go. So I think, having that open communication and taking a back seat sometimes helps you to see things through that different lens.
I think it's a great strategy, just sort of sit back and see what people have to say. And I'm sure you're always looking to stay up to date on industry trends and find new ways to incorporate them into your event strategies. What are some new industry trends that people should be aware of now, either on the DMC side or on, the main stage?
I think on just events overall, one of the things that I don't even know if trend is the right word, but I think one of the things that's here to stay and it's really at the forefront right now is the inclusivity piece of it. Everyone's a little bit different in a way that they perceive sensory, how they come into a room and they're either learning or perceiving something. So I definitely design for the sensory piece of it all, is making sure everybody's included. They're in the middle of our big September event. As I was walking, we're 15 minutes to that stage going live. There's 17,000 people moving one way, 6,000 another. And in the middle of it, I see a blind man trying to navigate his way through the crowd. So I stopped and asked him, where are you trying to get to? Are you trying to get to our offsite concert or are you trying to stay here for this one? Identified that, made sure he was going the right way. And then I described the different areas and what it was set up for and wanted him to help choose his own journey. And that was just one specific person. We need to be looking at that for the entire audience every time, though, because you don't know who's coming in that's hard of hearing, who has any of those invisible disabilities that they talk about. We should be planning ahead for all of it. I'm fortunate that I happened to be the one that saw him that was a little lost in the sea of people and helped him to figure out where he wanted to be. But we need to make sure every event is inclusive for anyone and their learning style and just what makes them comfortable so they have the best attendee journey.
Yeah, we talk a lot about different learning styles, just in everyday, communication within an organization. Some people are more visual, some people are more oral, some people need not just pictures, they need to have you really describe what it is that you're doing. What type of learning have you been focusing on? A lot of people have been talking about more immersive experiences. What has been your experience?
A lot of the immersive ones, like we talked about going to different events and experiencing them, I go and experience it all myself and I see how it comes across, going to different types of even establishments that are brick and mortar that are permanent. Think of Area 15 down in Las Vegas, for instance, and just all of the different things you can experience in that one building. It's so crazy over the top. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend it. And me as someone who tends to personally, I like quiet, I like peace, I like being able to talk to people at a normal tone, not screaming over music. I know that I'm sometimes alone in that thought. So I need to make sure that I'm thinking of, the people that do want to come to an EDC and just dance their faces off the whole time. They're the exact opposite of me, but I want to make sure they also have a really good time. So I go and I experience all of it just to immerse myself personally. That really is my biggest knowledge base, is coming from firsthand, seeing what it's like.
And is that something you consider when you're designing an event, that there are people who want to dance and the music's loud, but a lot of events these days are really about face-to-face relationships, building relationships, connecting with people. Do you keep that in mind to make sure, as you said, that the music isn't too loud in this area so we can talk to each other?
Yes, I try to be hyper aware of all of those. And are people here to network, to meet people? Our time is so valuable, and people are definitely a lot more selective with the events that they are attending and where they're choosing to spend their time. So looking to see what's that goal for them being there? What do they want to get out of it? And if we're making it so the first hour or two is that networking, and everyone that wants that quiet chatter and just getting to know people can do that, and then you can turn it into a party after, is definitely a great way to do it. But trying to make sure that you're giving people what they need to be successful and to show up for it too. You can't be everything to everybody. So hyper focus on those that you want there and speak their language and get them in the door.
At events, there's always little moments of little challenges, little unexpected moments. How do you deal with, these unexpected changes during an event, and to be able to ensure that the attendees don't really experience it, that there's sort of a seamless experience for them?
The attendees will never know what's going on behind the scenes on an event that I'm on. Even the staff, sometimes I think they know the bigger the smile, the more stressful it might be. I think we set the tone for the room. And as event professionals, it's up to us to keep people calm, cool, collected, especially if there's something crazy going on behind the scenes. And that's where you have to stop and take a moment and make the best decision that you can with the information that you have. And if you don't have enough information, don't make a hasty decision that could turn the vibe or even the safety of that event the wrong way. So, I've been walking through events before knowing that there is an absolute emergency in the kitchen and something bad is going on. And I walk through the event smiling. I've said hello to a couple of people, made sure that they're having a great time as I make my way back there. If I go running through that room, I'm setting the tone of panic and emergency. And that is not what we're there to do. We're there to make sure that they all have the best experience. And behind the scenes, we're putting out those fires, whether they're literal or figurative.
And how do you personally deal with the stress? I mean, I'm amazed sometimes, especially I think you see it more with veterans in the industry, that they should be freaking out, but they're not. There's the face that you're presenting to the people, the attendees. Hey, I'm just casually walking. But how are you feeling? Are you just so used to knowing that this is part of the game? There's going to be some issues. We're going to solve them, as opposed to every moment's cataclysmic and I'm going to freak out. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset and training yourself to be that way, that emergency preparedness. That's what a true event professional really should understand and know to be a part of. I was fortunate to grow up in a family that was heavy military and also first responder. So it was inherent to me. I try to teach people that quite a bit. But going into it and just knowing we're going to fix whatever it is, it's going to be fine, gauge it, figure out what needs to get done, and then you just go get it done, period.
You must be traveling all the time. What do you do just to relax? I mean, your business is traveling to exotic locations. If you wanted just to take some time off, are you traveling or are you staying home? What does that life balance, work-life balance look like for you?
Kind of a mix. So this is the longest I've been home all year. I've been home for 2 solid weeks and I have had an absolute blast. My husband and I catch up and we go hang out in Tahoe, which is our favorite spot on the planet. So that's my reconnecting with my family time is really what means the most to me. But funny enough, my vacations, I love traveling. Yes, I do it for work. I'm on a plane every single week. But then I get downtime and I'm like, let's hop on a plane. Where are we going? Where are we exploring? I love to explore and see new food, new culture, new people, just what's out there. That keeps me excited.
You know, I guess you like to go to concerts too, you know, going back to the Taylor Swift concert. And just to bring it full circle, what did you see going on at that event that other smaller events, but not arenas, but, you know, small conferences, small meetings, what can they take away based on your experience, what you took away from that? What would you want to share with people to say, hey, if you can add that element into your meeting, into your conference, you can have a similar effect that Taylor has?
I think the one thing that I took away from that show, and if anyone could be successful with it, would be creating that sense of community. I have never felt so much a part of a true community as when I was at those shows and those concerts. So to be able to do it at that level took such bandwidth and manpower to do, but it was created with an authenticity and being genuine. It goes back to letting people be enthusiastic and never squashing their enthusiasm. I think that was one of the things Taylor Swift talked about when she received that honorary doctorate. And you let people, you give them the space to be excited and to be enthusiastic and to celebrate something together. And you never squash any bit of that enthusiasm. I think that creates the strongest bonds and people come together and just have the absolute best time. If we could recreate that at every conference, we would be so successful. We wouldn't even know what to do with ourselves.
I think that's some great advice. You know, we talk a lot about the community within the events industry, but also communities within these microcosms of events, and have people wanting to go there because they want to be part of something. They want to build something while they're there. And I think that has a lot of merit and a lot of impact if you can create that moment, set them up to succeed by creating that community. And as you said, it starts right from the beginning to, know before you go, setting them up. That gave, at that Teneo event, gave everyone an idea, a vision of what it was going to look like. They get excited before they get there. And then they're treated like kings and queens throughout the next few days. Everyone gets to know each other. The Facebook, as I was talking about, is a great way to let people beforehand start to visualize some of the people they're going to meet, be able to connect the names. We talked a lot about names, when I was there that time. So I think one of the things that I'm taking away from this is what you just said, is building this sort of community, getting everyone involved, getting all the stakeholders involved, getting people so that everyone is set up to win and everyone has a stake in the outcome. So I think that's great.
Well, and having the right people in place too. I have to give you a shout out for that, Scott, the way that you got the Tracys together at Teneo and you can just memorize names and faces. Having someone that is that common bond, that invisible string that ties the whole event together, that really was your role throughout it and you knocked it out of the park. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I had an awesome time. It was a great time. And I'm glad, one of the best things that came out of it, I got to meet you and get a chance to talk to you here on the podcast. So thank you, Kate, so much for being on the show. And hopefully we'll run into each other at a future industry event.
I hope so. I know so. This industry is so small. I'm going to see you 10 more times in the next year and we'll wonder why we weren't friends sooner.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Kate.
Have a good one.
That's it for now. Thanks once again to eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. With the deepest catalog of professionals available, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, and if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.